Hey everyone, I just got the new 6x7 EasyPress 2 and I wanted to show you guys a great layering project with it. So I'm going to be making a onesie for my niece. So I'm going to look up an image to show you guys how we can start beginning to end. So I'm doing a Patriots onesie for her. We are Patriots fans in our family. And so I'm going to grab a coloring page. I'm going to show you how I convert this to layers in Design Space. And I really like doing that this way because it makes it much easier to upload, to layer this image, upload it, and all of that stuff. So I'm going to go ahead, selected my image, I'm going to right click and save image as. I'm going to save it as Patriots helmet coloring page, and then I'm going to go to Google Chrome. That's what I always use for my browser. I'm already in Design Space, so on the bottom left I'm going to click upload. I'm going to select upload image, and then I'm going to browse, and I'm going to search for our Patriots helmet coloring page. And then I'm going to select complex. I always select complex to make sure that if there's any shadowing, anything underneath, we're getting that. So I can see this image is really huge. I'm going to go up here on the top right and zoom out some. And the first thing I'm going to do is go over to the top left, and I'm going to select this magic wand. What I want to do here is delete all of the white spaces. This is really important because this is going to help us create all of those layers. Now for the pieces up here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my eraser tool because this is a bigger image. I'm going to slide it over so that I have a nice, get it as big as I can. And I'm going to just erase, I can go ahead over here and crop it. This will be easier for this image. And I'm going to delete what I don't want. Oh, I'm going to undo it. Ooh. I'm going to select what I do want to keep. So we're going to zoom out and get as much of this image as I can. And it's not going to let me fully get it all in there. So we'll just go down, and now we'll, once we get it, click on, there we go. And now we'll zoom out again, and we can continue on with our magic wand over here. Make sure you're getting all those pieces. I like to go through first and get all of the bigger pieces, and then I like to go through, I can zoom in and go through and get all those smaller little areas that I didn't reach the first time around. Sometimes you may miss a piece and you'll notice it. You can do, you can select the preview button right down here so you can see, or you can, when you go to the next page, you'll see it there if you missed any pieces. So it's up to you how you want to do it. You can do it with the preview. You can wait until the next section. So I'm going to just zoom in really tight and make sure we get all these little areas. This is going to make a big difference in terms of layering. We want to make sure we get every little nook and cranny. So I'm going to make sure we get every little bit so that we can contour. If you haven't used the contour feature, it's an excellent feature in Design Space, and that can help us create the layers. So we are going to learn how to do that today as part of using our EasyPress to layer. Since we are going to be layering, I'm going to be layering with the EasyPress, not just using it. I'm going to be layering this SVG on there. So I wanted to show you guys how you can create the layers in the first place. I like to create it this way, and like I said, we will go through the contouring process, but I like to do it this way because it eliminates my need to end up having to slice too many things. You can, depending on your brand of iron-on or HTV, you can only layer so many pieces on top of each other. And for me, I don't like that feeling anyway. It can feel very thick and very bulky, and especially during the winter. if you've got a thick jacket on and it's too heavy underneath, or during the summer when it's just too hot in general. So I got all my white pieces that I can see. I'm going to click continue. And then I'm going to save this as a cut file. And I'm going to go over here. I'm just going to copy and paste this Patriots helmet coloring page into my tags. And I'm going to save it. And since we just uploaded the image, I'm going to go right ahead and I'm going to select it from here and upload it. Now this is really going to be a process of, this is really big. I like to trim it down up here. I think it makes it easier. I'm going to leave it a little bigger so it's easier for you guys to see too. This is basically just going to be duplicating and contouring. So I'm going to duplicate this, set it over here, and I'm going to take this layer. I'm going to go to the bottom left right-hand corner of my layers panel. I'm going to select contour, and the easiest way to do this part is to hide all contours. It's going to hide everything but the base of our helmet, and it's going to go all black. And that's what we want as our base layer, and we're going to lay everything on top of that. Now you can notice down here that it didn't connect. That's because you can see this little broken part in between here. That coloring page wasn't fully connected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my shapes on the left side. I'm going to grab a square. I'm going to size it down really teeny tiny, and I'm going to line it up with my helmet here. And I'm going to select both the helmet and that, and I'm going to weld it. By welding it, I make it all one piece, and then I can go back into the contour button and I can select those pieces and contour them out. I can now start with this piece. Now, depending on how you like to do things, I like to have my image up on my iPad or something on the left-hand side of my screen, or to the left of my computer, so I can visualize what color goes where and all the layers like that. So it's up to you guys how you'd like to do it, but I like to usually do that. So you can kind of go back and forth here if you don't have another device, and we can see what colors we've got here. So I can see that the whole base of the helmet here is gray. So I'm going to go back to Google Chrome, and I'm actually going to delete this duplicate, and I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to hit my contour button. I'm going to take this out, keep this. Nope, just kidding. I want to undo that. I'm going to go back and stay with this piece here. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add a teeny tiny shape to this one. Usually you won't run into this. Usually this is just if you have one broken part, which rarely happens, but I happen to have that happen to me. I'm going to zoom in so I can make sure that I'm getting this nice and even. And I'm just going to size it up to just fill that little hole right here. And once I get that, I can weld that in place, select both and weld it. And that's going to go ahead and give me my full helmet here. And now what I'm going to do is I like to start with my base color. So the base of this helmet is gray. Now what I find easiest here is to go ahead and hide all contours. And then I can select, I like to keep my piece 2 over to the left here because I think that it makes it easier for me to make sure I'm clicking everything that I need to be clicking. I'm going to select this piece and then I can delete the back of that helmet. So I'm going to go ahead, now that I have that piece, and I'm going to change it to a light gray color. I'm going to slide it over here. Now if I miss some gray pieces, that's okay because we can go back and get them later. And I'm going to duplicate this. And I'm going to work from here. So I'll go back to my image and I can see that the tails of this and then this red part's for the helmet. So I'm going to go ahead and do the red. I'll go back to my contour button and I'm going to select all of the pieces that were red Now I still have that gray piece selected, and that's okay because it's going to, we're going to do like we did before. We're going to select all of our red pieces, and then we can select the gray one so that it's going to continue with our red pieces. So you're going to go ahead and continue this through each layer. And I'm going to go ahead and do this off screen since it's a little time consuming. So you guys get the process. You just keep duplicating and contouring until you have all your layers done. Okay, now that I've done all my contouring, I want us to take a look at how our image is going to look piece by piece. Now this is important because in here you may want to slice a few things or go back and contour, which is what I usually do. So if I pull this apart, I can see that I'm going to have a few more layers than I had intended because this isn't cut out of the gray, and this bottom tail here isn't cut out of the gray. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my gray piece and I'm going to contour it. Let me put this back in here so we can make sure everything's lined up nicely. And I'm going to contour those pieces right out of our gray. So I'm going to actually make sure that we have our gray layer selected when we contour. And I'm going to go down into my side panel here, and I'm going to pull out the pieces that I know I want to be sliced out of my my gray. So I want to make sure that I'm selecting this bigger piece here because that's going to select my whole one. And I want the bigger one out of these two. So I'm going to try and select that here and this here. And the star too. All right, so let me make sure how I have everything now. Okay, I think that looks much better for how, see how this is just right on top of the black, there's nothing underneath, and this is right on top of the black, nothing underneath, and the same now for the blue. Oh, I have to remove the star from the gray and the star from the blue. Since we have the blue selected, I'm going to go ahead and remove the star out of the blue while we already have it selected. And then I'm going to go, oh, that didn't go. Oh, there it is. My computer's a little laggy today, I guess. And then I'm going to go back to the gray and I'm going to go ahead and remove the star from there. And that's just going to help everything kind of lay together really nicely like a puzzle. When I create my own files, this is how I do it to ensure that I'm really not getting a lot of thick, heavy layers in there. And I'm going to just kind of piece it all back up here. All right, so now that we have that all done, I'm going to actually want to, on my white piece here, it looks like selected the bigger star, and I'm going to swap it out for the smaller one here. And that should be good. So now that I have my final piece, I need to decide how I want to size my onesie. Now what I'm going to do here to make it easier is I'm going to go up here to select all, and I'm going to group my image. All that's doing is holding it in one place so I can size it and it's all together and I can move it around. So I know I'm going to put this on a onesie. So I already, I have templates that I cut out in different sizes of cardstock that I place on each item as I am going to design for it so that I can ensure I'm getting a nice size. So I found that the 5.5 by 7 square or rectangle was what was going to work for my onesie. So I'm going to size this to 5.5 by 7. I'm going to change it to white so that I have a nice background. And I want it to say, is it Sunday yet? And I'm going to, there's a Patriots font that is free for commercial use, NFL Patriots Wilson. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. And now I want to change up the colors on that. So once it's done loading, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ungroup all of my letters. Oh, I did that before I had a chance to edit. So I'm going to go ahead and ungroup all of my letters so that I can go ahead and I can edit what colors I want them to be. I like to go ahead first and size how I want my image. on here before I change all the colors. I like to do all of my sizing, and that's why I type everything all together, and then I can ungroup it and edit it. And I like to do it that way so that I know everything is uniform in size. So I'm going to select all of this. I'm going to attach it. There's no need to weld since it's not a cursive font. We have nothing overlapping. I'm going to change it to red. I'm going to do the same, attach this, and I'm going to make it blue. And then I will make the bottom part there red. And I want an exclamation point, but when using this font, I want a question mark. But when using this font before, I found that the font doesn't have the question mark as a character, so I'm just going to use the Cricut Sans question mark. I keep calling it an exclamation point. I'm going to use that as my question mark, and I'm going to check the size of this whole piece here. It is 1.061, so I'm going to just change this to 1.061 so that it matches. And I'm going to go ahead, and you can use the align tool up here and center it vertically so it's all the same size. Attach it, and we'll change it red. And I like to use this part up here, which is my project colors, so that I can make sure everything is the same color, that I'm not picking a different red or a different blue. But to be on the safe side, because I don't know what color red and blue I picked for here, because I don't remember. Oops, we're going to arrange and move this to the front. Because I don't remember what color I chose, I'm going to go over here to color sync, and everything is all on the same color, so that's good. So I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. Since I don't need this square for more than my template, I'm going to hide it. And the next step is I'm going to make it. Now, the most important thing when we hit make it is to mirror our image. So the first thing that I like to do before anything is go down through all of my mats and hit the mirror image. I can go back and edit, but I never want to forget to mirror. Your HTV will be useless. So I like to go through all of them first and mirror. And this actually brings me to how I do things. I like to start with my bottom mat, with my last mat that's going to cut. And what I like to do is lay all my colors out in a pile. So I have a bunch of scrap pieces that I'm going to use. So I have red. I'll put that down first. Sometimes depending on my scraps, I will cut my scraps up before I put them on the mat. Sometimes I will cut my materials up after so that I can trim it as close as I can and save as much. But it's all dependent on my file at the time. So now I have blue. So I'm going to add my blue here, and then I have black. So I'm going to take my black and add it to my pile, and I'm going to do white and then gray. Got my white and then my gray, and I'm going to put it all in a pile, and that way I know what order my machine's going to cut it, and it makes it a lot easier swapping mats. I have a multitude of mats, so sometimes I don't actually do that. I set up my mats beforehand, but right now my craft table is a big mess, so I don't have enough room for all those mats. So I like to do it this way. I always watch my mats when I'm cutting to make sure that I am doing it in the right order. Sometimes my kids touch stuff and it gets all screwed up, so you always want to double check everything. So I'm going to click continue. I'm going to select my maker, and we're going to select iron on as our setting because I'm just using regular iron on. I'm not going to be doing my cutting on screen. I'm going to do it off screen, but I'm going to show you guys how we set up our mat because this is very, very important. Okay, so you want to use your green mat for your vinyl. Now, what is so important about HTV, for those of you who have never worked with HTV before, you will notice this has a shiny side and it has a dull side. It's hard to see because of my lighting, but let's see. Sometimes it's darker, but you can just see like a shiny and a more matte side. Now, if you've never worked with HTV before and you're unsure, this shiny side here is your carrier sheet, which is like your transfer tape. So when you think about it, that's why we're mirroring our image, because this shiny side goes down on your mat. And that's so important because it's going to cut our image in reverse. And then when we take it off, we're going to weed everything out, and our HTV, what is left, will still be stuck on this. So I'm going to cut everything off screen. I'm going to weed most of it off screen. I'll weed a smaller piece with you guys on screen so you can really see how the HTV is. And then we'll go ahead and we'll press it. Okay, so I have so far cut and weeded most of my stuff, but I wanted to save a few pieces for you guys so you could see. Because it's on our carrier sheet, it's much easier to weed than regular vinyl. So I'm going to go ahead and just put it down here so you guys can get a better visual of it. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick out my tiny little pieces. And this is actually really flexible and soft, your vinyl. As you can see, the way it curls up and stuff, because it is made for shirts, and it's going to the adhesive will be activated by the heat. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out my little pieces first. And now, because we trimmed it down, a lot of times it is a little difficult to pull the rest of this down. So I'm going to show you a little trick. I do this with adhesive vinyl too. I like to use my weeding tool to kind of pick back a little piece from the corner here. You'll get up a little closer so you guys can see it. So you can see this piece, and then you can see my clear carrier sheet. And so I'm going to just go ahead and carefully pull it all around, weed out the excess. And a little trickier on some places, but because it is really flexible, but it is kind of stretchy too, so you have to be careful not to pull it too hard. Now, because I cut all the same color on one piece, I'm going to go ahead and cut this. Now, you can cut your pieces apart on the before you weed or after you weed. It doesn't really matter. It's really all preference. And I want you to see how this carrier sheet is sticky. See how it's stuck to my thumb? It's sticky because it's going to stick to your shirt a little bit to really help it not move its place once you have it all lined up. So once I weed everything out, and after right before I went to cut, I double checked my image, and I realized that I missed something when I was contouring, and my black part was supposed to have some pieces cut out. So I went back and I did that. So if my image does look a little different now than it did on that final cut screen, it's because it is a tiny bit different. I'm using my Cricut self-healing mat as my board to cut on, and I really like that too because I know that it's perfect for a case, which it usually doesn't happen. The carrier sheet's pretty sturdy, but if I punch it through here, it's going to keep it nice, my surface nice. So I'm going to, what I like to do first is I like to layer my image all together. Now, these carrier sheets are sticky, so they'll stick together, so you can make sure everything looks nice and everything cut nice and you didn't miss any pieces. But it's also important to remember that even though they are sticky, you need to be really, really careful when pulling them apart, because although it is sturdy, it's not super thick. So you want to be really, really, really careful when you go to pull these apart to layer them on your design, on your item, because this is not, you can't layer like this. You have to press each individual layer, which is why layering can be so tricky. But I feel like the results are so, so nice, so I love layering. So, I like to do this, and this is going to help. For an image like this, it really doesn't make a huge difference when we go to press it, but I'll show you. So we're going to go ahead over to my EasyPress, and we'll go from there. Okay, I am going to be pressing on my kitchen counter. I have the EasyPress mat, which I love. It tells you right here this side down, so we know which side is the right side to use. It is really nice and it's thick, so you're gonna get a nice pressing surface with this. And I have my onesie already ready. and I'm going to go ahead and put it on my pressing pad. But one thing you want to be really careful about are these seams up here. They are thick, and if your EasyPress touches it in any way, you're not going to get a flat press, and that's really important that we get a flat press. So I'm going to set that aside, and I really want to show you guys how quickly this EasyPress heats up. It is so crazy. So I'm starting it. Now what we're going to do, well, I turned it on. What we're going to do here, there are a few options. There's this great PDF that Cricut offers, Cricut EasyPress settings with the Cricut EasyPress mat, or with the Cricut EasyPress settings with a towel if you don't have the mat. And right over here is a little guide. It tells you if it's warm peel, cold peel, how much pressure you need, gentle or firm. And then here it tells you your iron-on type and whatever material you have, which is really nice. But I'm going to use the EasyPress interactive quick reference guide. So my iron-on material is everyday iron-on. I'm going to select my base material. It is 100% cotton. And I'm going to select that my surface is the EasyPress mat. Now it's going to tell me everything right over here. Pre-wash the item before application without fabric softener, set temp to 315, preheat for 5 seconds, apply heat and gentle pressure for 30 seconds, flip material and press for 15 seconds, peel off warm and enjoy. Allow 24 hours after application before washing, wash and tumble dry inside out, do not bleach. Now, there are a few things that we're going to do a little bit differently since we are layering, but I'm going to put this aside. So I'm going to go ahead and set it to 315 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're going, oh, that's at 340. So we need to go down. So I'm going to press the little temperature button here, and I'm going to go down to 315, and I'm going to press the temperature button again. And when this little guy over here turns green, we're ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and set my timer down to 5 seconds. So I press the timer button, go down to 5 seconds, and I'm going to press the timer button again. Now while this is going down to the temperature I need, I'm going to set it aside. And I'm going to bring my onesie back for you guys. Now, here's what we're going to do. The first thing I always do is take a lint roller. No matter what color I'm using, I always take a nice lint roller to my item. I have a dog, I have children. This is a necessity. You don't have to do the whole item, but since this is a gift, I will just do it now, get it out of the way. And I'm going to use a Teflon sheet to cover my HTV while I am pressing. Now, you can use, there's a Cricut pressing cloth you can use parchment paper, a thin pillowcase. It's really up to you. I have a bunch of Teflon, and that is my preference. So it's up to you what you want to use. Now, while we're waiting for it to heat up, I stuck all my pieces together. I'm going to show you. I'm going to very carefully separate them. Now, be very careful. Okay, I'm going to keep this one all together for right now. So what I'm going to do is set it up on my onesie the way I want it. Now this is, there are a few things that you can do, but for me right now, just kind of winging it, throwing it on there, works for me. Alright, so that's just to make sure that we like the setup, how our design looks, all of that stuff. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to feel with my fingers to make sure that everything's on the EasyPress mat. Now I know that we're good. I'm going to peel my layers apart off of this. Now this is why I like to use the black as a base layer, because I don't have to piece all of these pieces together on top of it. I could have done this. See? Alright, now we're at temp. I could have done this, and I know that everything is set, everything is going to go right on top of it nice and neatly. But I always make sure everything looks nice and lined up. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these all apart very carefully, and I'm going to set them with the sticky side up on my counter so that I can press as I go. What we're going to do now is take all this off, because we're going to do a 5-second pre-press. Now this is really, really nice. You have this nice little base for the EasyPress that it goes on while it's heating up, so you're not worried about your surface. And we're going to go ahead and move it over here, and I'm going to press that. See, now that it's green, I'm going to do just a little bit of pressure. and you can see where it warmed everything up. Now I'm just going to just kind of press it, make sure everything's nice and warmed up, and kind of iron it out actually. I'll put my EasyPress back. And for this, I'm not going to set my timer. I'm going to do this kind of my way. And I'm actually going to show you quickly. This is how I like to line up my HTV. I'm going to fold this in half the long way and make sure all of these are pieced together nicely. And I'm going to press along this seam here, make sure everything's flat. I can see a little wrinkle. And it's just going to give us a seam to be the base of our design. We just need, I'll press it for the 5 seconds. You don't need long. And then you'll see, it's not going to be it's a faint line, but you can see it there. And then you can go ahead and do the same this way and fold it up and just press a quick line here and use that as a guide. I like to use that sometimes, but I like to use it for the middle. I feel like it keeps everything straight. And then what you can do is fold your HTV pieces. Now if you cut them nice and even with your cutter or whatever, it will line up. So, but since my image is kind of a little off, I like to use 2 to 3 fingers down as a guide, and just go ahead and piece these on. I'm not going to use my seam here as my guide. I don't really need to, since it's not really an even design. I'm going to press that down, and I'm going to move this over a little, make sure this is on. Now, one important thing to remember is you can see this carrier sheet here is overlapping this one. That's okay, because no HTV is touching it. But if there was HTV touching another carrier sheet, it's going to melt to that carrier sheet. So you have to be very careful. Okay, so the trick to layering, which right now my focus will be on the helmet because that's what we're layering, is to only press for a second at a time. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to gentle pressure down, pull it up, and we're going to check our carrier sheet. It's going to pull right off. Now, depending on what type of HTV you use, it might not come off that quickly. You might need another second, but this is pretty quickly. And I'm not going to pull the other carrier sheets because I didn't really press them that well. So we don't need to do that right now. So I'm going to go ahead and line up the gray. I'm going to put my Teflon back, and again, just press for a second. HTV shrinks when heated, so when you heat each layer is shrinking a little bit. So if you heat one layer too much, then everything's going to be off. So you want to heat everything together as much as you can. So we're going to go ahead and place everything down here. And we're going to go ahead and do this layer. Just for a second. Pull, see, that one wasn't long enough. So we're going to have to very carefully move this around and press it again just for a second and peel very slowly, and again with our next layer, and we'll just repeat this until all of our layers are down, and then we'll do one final press. Now I can see that that didn't line up exactly perfectly because I heated that one layer just a little too much. So I'm just going to trim my carrier sheet here and line that piece up. Okay. Press for another second. And again, we're going to carefully remove this, make sure all of our pieces are down. And then we will go ahead and add our final layer here. I'm going to trim this one down again. line this piece up. And then this piece here. And press. Now at this point, I like to do it this way. I'm going to do one quick press. Peel this sheet carefully. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to up my time to the full 15 seconds that this needs to press. And we're going to get all of our layers. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on. I'm going to start the button and I'm going to give it some gentle pressure. Now we want to make sure that we remove all of our carrier sheets before we do the final press. Otherwise, the indentation of the top carrier sheet will press into our other HTV. So we're going to go ahead now and pull all of our carrier sheets. And then with the EasyPress, Cricut recommends that you flip the material and press for 15 seconds. So I'm going to carefully flip it. And I already have my press set to 15 seconds. So I'm going to put my Teflon sheet down. I always use Teflon so I don't burn my item, my garment. So I'm going to go ahead, press for the 15 seconds. And then we can turn our item back out and you can see the final finished product. All right. Flip it over and we're done.